All right, everyone, including me, is excited for this Saturday's Kentucky Derby. I prep for this race all year. I can't wait for it to go off. So, before I get into the analysis, let me just say that I am a pure trifecta and superfecta player in the Kentucky Derby. So, I'll be doing my analysis based on that fact. So, I hope you enjoy the video. 2017 was my biggest hit. Thank you, Battle of Midway, for coming in third and making that payout really nice. And then last year was absolutely devastating because I hit the trifecta, but pretty much everyone hit the trifecta. It was chalky. And I had instilled regard finishing fourth in my superfecta. All good magic had to do was fade one more inch and let Audible buy him, and then I would have hit the superfecta. That would have been a really nice hit, the biggest hit of my Kentucky Derby betting career. But nonetheless, lost out by a nose. Thank you, Larry Colmus, for calling the wrong horse and getting me even more excited. But should have covered better. So let's talk this year's Kentucky Derby. Omaha Beach is the favorite at 4-1, a very tepid, warm, lukewarm favorite. Let's go in post position by post position. I will tell you what I like about the horse, where I'm placing them in my bets, what I don't like about the horse, and why I'm not including them, so on and so forth. A little bit of insight into how I bet the Kentucky Derby. So we're starting at post position one. This is War of Will. Pretty much he was coasting through the Louisiana circuit. He won the LeCompte, he won the Risen Star. And then when it came to the big race, the mile and eighth race, the Louisiana Derby, not doing so well. As you can see, he faded from 6th to ninth. He came up empty. He was behind traffic, a position where he's not accustomed to being in. All throughout the Louisiana circuit, he was in a stalking position, usually second or third, right off the pace. Rumor has it that Mark Casse wanted to get some dirt in his face when riding in the Louisiana Derby, give him a little bit of an education. It didn't work out so well. He faded. He came up empty. So it's up to you whether you want to draw a line through the Louisiana Derby completely and say that it's just a freak race. He didn't like the track that day or something, or he just didn't like getting dirt kicked in his face. He was originally a turf course, so maybe getting a lot of dirt kicked back in his face wasn't exactly too good. For me personally, he is a throw, even in the races that he did win. So you're looking at the Risen Star right here. He beat 2 1/4 lengths. You say that's a very nice win. At the same time, he beat Country House, who we'll get into later, who I believe is just a pure plotter. That's a horse that you should beat if you're going to be a true Triple Crown contender. War of Will not be on any part of my tickets. First, second, third, or fourth, he will not be on any of those spots in my exotic wagers. We go to number 2, Tax. Tax has been in the New York circuit, third in the Remsen, first in the Withers, and second in the Wood Memorial behind Tacitus. And Tax got an absolute perfect situation in the Wood Memorial, and he still couldn't finish it off. Now, when you get a perfect ride and you still couldn't finish it off, it looked like he was able to get the jump on Tacitus, and he had a better starting ground position, and he just could not get the job done. For me, after watching that race visually, that is an automatic toss for me. Anytime you lose ground, and not only did he lose ground, but he lost ground in getting the best trip out of anyone in that entire Wood Memorial. So an automatic toss for me. He will not be in first, second, third, or fourth on any of my tickets. I do not like him in any way. I actually prefer the horse that came in third more than Tax. That's High Cal, but we'll talk about him later. So post position 3, we go to By My Standards. Winner of the Louisiana Derby at odds of 22-1. No one really saw it coming. He won his last maiden race before the Louisiana Derby by 4 lengths. That was his coming out party, and then he validated that big effort by following up with a win in the Louisiana Derby, which I believe is a very weak rendition. So By My Standards beat Spinoff, and Spinoff, that was a race that was right for him. He should have closed out the Louisiana Derby. He couldn't do it. So Spinoff, I believe, is distance challenged, and he's not going to do well in the Kentucky Derby. By my standards, give him credit. He did weave through horses into leading into the stretch, so it says he'll be able to handle the traffic just fine. He had a lot of courage to go through, especially only winning one race out of his 4 lifetime starts leading into the Louisiana Derby. He did a really nice job going in. It was a professional effort. He did what he was supposed to do given the nice position and the nice ride that Gabriel Saez gave him. So even though it was a nice effort on his part, Louisiana has been pretty weak as a prep leading into these past Kentucky Derbies, and I believe that this one was also a very weak rendition. It is, by my estimation, the second worst prep behind, or just in front of, the UAE Derby, and I'm not even including the Japanese circuit in that in that analysis. So by my standards will also not be on any of my tickets. We go to number 4, Gray Magician. So I just said that I believe that the UAE Derby was the weakest prep, and I'm standing by that. You have to make some choices when you're handicapping a 20-horse field, and my choice is to completely, again, disregard Gray Magician, and I will also be disregarding the French horse that's coming out of it as well. Absolutely no interest. Now, I do not have a problem with horses coming out of Dubai. I really, really liked Thunder Snow going into the 2017, and to this day, I will maintain that if it did not rain, he would have won that Derby. I'm convinced. That was a extremely weak field. Probably the best horse in that field was Classic Empire, and he was all sorts of banged up, and he didn't get a clean trip in the Kentucky Derby. Won by Always Dreaming, who, don't get me wrong, that was the best Derby that I've ever had in my betting career. That was a weird race, and I'm convinced if it was a fast track, that Thunder Snow, if he didn't freak out in the beginning, would have had a great chance. So I'm not against UAE entrance at all, but this race was just absolutely weak. There was no contenders in here at all. At least that's in my personal opinion. I don't like any horses coming out of that race. So Gray Magician, the 4-hole, is a pass for me. Improbable. Now we start getting into the more legitimate contenders. This is one of the many Bob Baffert entries in this year's edition. Anytime you get a Bob Baffert horse in the Derby and they're peaking at the right time, you have to look at them. So Improbable, he came in second by a neck in the Rebel, which was the first edition of the Rebel, first wave of the Rebel. He lost by a neck to Long Range Toddy. And then he came back in the Arkansas Derby, and he had a very nice stretch drive against Omaha Beach. Now, he has problems in the gates, and it looks like Baffert is taking blinkers off. This is a very uncommon move for Baffert to be making equipment changes into a huge race like the Kentucky Derby. And if you look at historical instances where horses made equipment changes from their last race into the Kentucky Derby, the numbers do not bode well at all. So this is a very big negative for me. I know what Bob Baffert's trying to do. He's trying to get a little more keen out of the gate. He's trying to get him to settle a little bit, and he thinks that taking the blinkers off, he'll be able to see his surroundings and he'll be able to settle a little bit. He'll break from the gate a little bit better. Watching the Arkansas Derby, the Omaha Beach was impressive. Improbable made this very awkward, I would say, mid-track move where he just moved up from the pace going very wide. So he gave up a lot of ground in making that middle move, as a lot of handicappers like to say. Improbable, me personally, I'm not too high on this horse. I thought he ran really well in the Arkansas Derby, and you can't complain about his Rebel or his Los Alamitos Futurity, where he won by 5 lengths, where he should have, over Mucho Gusto. But I thought he was a little bit too quirky for my liking in the Arkansas Derby. Now, with that being said, I will be using him on my Kentucky Derby bets. I will be placing him in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th spots. This is one of those where a lot of people are going to be considering Improbable a win candidate, and I have no issues if you say that you like Improbable to win. I wouldn't argue against anyone who wants to do that. His buyers and Brisnet numbers say that he is definitely eligible to compete in this field and has the chance to win. For me, I'm taking a stand. I'm going to throw out Improbable for the winner circle, but I will definitely be using him in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. He has good stalking speed. If he pulls it all together, he has a great chance at having a great Saturday. He's shown that he can run on both a fast track and a wet track, so the weather won't be an issue for Improbable. Number 6 is Vekoma, home of the weirdest looking stretch run I've ever seen a horse run in a winning effort in the Bluegrass Stakes. Take a look at the Bluegrass Stakes and just look at his strides coming home in the stretch. I've never seen a horse run like that and still win the race, and win the race convincingly by 3.5 lengths. So, in my opinion, Bluegrass was playing very speed friendly that day. He took advantage of it. He was well ahead of the pace, well ahead of the others. He was in a stretch duel, but they weren't going very fast. So he took advantage of a speed-friendly track, and I actually like the horse that came in second, Win, a lot more than I like Vekoma. Nonetheless, he'll be an important part of the Derby because he is going to be up and on the pace. At least that's what you would think he would be, because that's where he's ran his best Looking at his past performances, the only time he was not close to the pace was the Fountain of Youth, and that's when he came up empty, even though the Fountain of Youth favored horses coming from behind. It was a pace meltdown in that race. He still should have finished a little bit better. So I imagine that the connections, George Weaver and Castellano, are going to put Vekoma in a more stalking and upfront position that he's more accustomed to winning. So I think Vekoma is going to put a nice little effort to rush Maximum Security, who's in post 7 right next to him. I think he's going to push him out a little bit. And speaking of Maximum Security, this is the most... Oh, before I get into him. So am I using Vekoma? The only spot I would consider Vekoma in my personal bets would be 4th. If I'm betting the Superfecta, I would put him 4th, and that's it. I don't think he has the talent to compete with the big boys in this race, and I don't think he has closing prowess if he gets bumped and driven to the rear of the field. I don't believe that he has the ability to make up that much ground. I don't think he's as talented as a lot of the other runners in here. I don't even think he's as talented as the horse that he beat by 3 lengths in the Bluegrass, and we'll get to him later. So Vekoma, I will use maybe 4th in my tickets. That's about it. The only thing that I do like about him is that he only has 4 career lifetime starts, and I like horses that are lightly raced going into the Kentucky Derby. That's pretty standard going into modern Kentucky Derby handicapping, but nonetheless, I like that he's won early. They didn't have to race him too much. They knew they had something special, so they kept him light on his feet. And here he is in the Kentucky Derby. It'll be his 5th lifetime start. But that being said, I will keep him 4th and nothing better. So we move on to Maximum Security. Probably the most polarizing horse, and for me, the most difficult horse to handicap. Now, why is that? So in the Florida Derby, he pretty much walked on the lead. And not only did he walk on the lead, it was probably a speed-friendly racetrack. When you look at Gulfstream and you look at their big races, they tend to soup up the track and typically favor horses that are on or near the lead. He was on the lead. No one really pressured him at all, and he just went with it. And here's why it's polarizing. So you normally look at a race like the Florida Derby, he's like, oh, he beat Bodie Express, who was like 70-1 or something absolutely ridiculous in the Florida Derby. So he's an automatic toss-out. But here's the thing. If you look at his past 3 races, and I know they were very short distance races at Gulfstream Park, but he blew those fields out of the water. And I don't care if you're heavily favored or not. He did it the right way, winning his last optional claimer 50K race by 18 lengths. I don't care what kind of competition you're facing. When you win a race by 18 lengths and it's only 7 furlongs, you have some ability. So that's where it gets a little bit interesting. And Gary and Mary West, they're known. They really want to win the Derby as owners. The question mark is kind of the trainer, Jason Service, not really known for getting horses prepped too well for the Kentucky Derby. He hasn't had many entrants in the past, or many good entrants. Probably not as good as Maximum Security. So it'll be interesting to see what Maximum Security does. He's definitely going to play a factor in the pace, and he's sitting right next to Vekoma, who's also looking to play a factor in the pace. But Maximum Security, he's used to going to the front and just hanging and winning. This time, with the presence of Vekoma, with the presence of maybe a spinoff, with the presence of Omaha Beach, he'll probably be forced. It won't be probably. He'll definitely be forced to go faster than what he did in the Florida Derby. He's obviously talented. He's lightly raced, only 4 lifetime starts, and the 3 starts before the Florida Derby were against really light competition, so there were nothing more than, showboaty workouts, essentially. And that's how you could kind of view the Florida Derby if you wanted to. How hard did they really have to use this horse in the Florida Derby? He wins by 3 lengths, but if this track is speed favoring and he walked on the lead, well, how hard did he really get worked? I'm really interested to see what this horse by New Year's Day ends up doing. For me personally, on my tickets, I am still debating what I want to do with him, but I might put him 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in my tickets. He reminds me a lot of Bayern, the Bob Baffert horse. You remember him. If you give him an early lead, he's going to take it and he's going to win. And if he doesn't get the early lead, no way, Jose. He had no shot. He didn't like any of it at all. Now, he's come off the pace already. He's started in a 2nd lifetime start on a muddy track. He was started off in 3rd position. He stalked easily and ran by those, but that was against weaker competition. I don't know if he can win off the pace in a race like the Kentucky Derby. So I have him right now in 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th positions in all my exotic tickets. But come the come the time Saturday, I have to see what his odds are. I'm very curious to see what his odds are come race time. I'm thinking it's going to be around the 9 to 1, 10 to 1, in which case you could argue he offers a lot of value because he's very talented and he might get a little overlooked given that a lot of people are going to throw his Florida Derby out because it was a speed biased track. We go to post position 8, and this is Tacitus, a very nice, gutsy horse, going to give you a good, honest run every single time. He comes from the back, and he's going to make his nice one run. So he ran down Tax in the Wood Memorial, and Tax, as I mentioned earlier, got an absolute perfect trip. So Tacitus, after getting bumped around, he did get bumped pretty bad in that race. He finished the job, and he finished it convincingly. It seems like distance is not going to be an issue for him. At the same time, I don't know how fast he is. He got really good numbers in the Wood Memorial, but I think they might be juiced up just a little bit. Tacitus is a very hard-trying horse. I don't fault anyone for picking him or for putting him in all your tickets. For me personally, he's going to be a third and fourth type of horse. I don't believe he has the ability to keep up with the prime contenders here. So I think he's a good candidate for third and fourth just because he does come off the back. He's going to be stalking distance at most, maybe back further than that. So I think he has a good post position in post 8 where Maximum Security and Vekoma to his left are just going to go off. It'll give him some nice space. If he wants to move over closer to the rail, it'll open up for him and he can get a nice position. So I believe he has a really good post. And I believe he has the ability to grind it out and get the distance. I just don't think he has the talent and the speed to get the job done. He had a nice Tampa Bay Derby, but everything kind of fell into his lap. It didn't look like he was running too hard in that race. And I like this horse, but I don't love him, is what I'm saying. If he finished completely off the board, I would not be surprised in any way. And if he finished third or second, I wouldn't be surprised in any way. For me, I'm going to be placing him third and fourth on my trifecta and superfecta tickets. Now, I've already talked about the UAE Derby and how I'm throwing out Grey Magician. I'm definitely throwing out Pluquet Parfait, or however you want to pronounce his name. I'm definitely going to be throwing him out. Not interested at all. This is a horse where at the Risen Star came in 13th by 20 lengths, and then at the Lecomte came in 5th by 6 lengths. The connections just took him overseas very smartly in a race that came up extremely weak, and they got him a nice big paycheck. You look at that, lifetime earnings, $1.5 million. So the connections did a great job picking their spots. Ricardo Santana Jr., I wish he would get a better mount for the Kentucky Derby. He had his chance on Creator, and he got bumped around. I really want him to get a better mount in future race. But nonetheless, he is a complete toss for me. I would be surprised if he finished better than 8th in the Kentucky Derby. That race was just very weak. We move to number 10, post position 10, Cutting Humor. This is the Todd Pletcher entrance. Todd Pletcher has not made a good impact in this year's 3-year-old crop, surprisingly. He's usually always got 3 to 4 contenders. This year he's got Cutting Humor, a horse who I have no interest in at all. Southwest looked terrible at 7th place, beaten 8 3/4 lengths. He barely won a Sunland Derby that did not come up that impressive. You could argue he beat Mucho Gusto by a pretty good handful, who's an okay horse in his own right, but nonetheless, the Sunland Derby not looking strong at all this year, and it took a lot of effort for him to get the job done. Corey Lanerie takes them out, and I believe if you get Corey Lanerie on the rail, you can make something happen, but he's not. He's in post 10. I just don't think he has the natural ability or the speed to keep up with this crop. He will not be on any of my tickets anywhere. We go do post 11, High Call, and I mentioned that I like High Call more than Tax. That being said, I don't know if I like High Call all that much. In the Wood Memorial, he was way well back. That being said, he didn't run into a lot of the traffic that a lot of other horses had in the Wood Memorial. He had a fairly clean trip, but he was 14 lengths back. Now, there was a humongous speed duel by Not That Brady in the Wood Memorial, so pretty much every horse was well back, but this horse was well back, and he made an okay move closing up to get third. He was still beaten 4 lengths. He was not even close to Tacitus or Tax for that matter. Now, I like High Cal a little bit more than Tax. I think High Cal wants the distance a little bit more than Tax does, so I would place High Cal to finish above Tax if that's a prop bet that I'm willing to do. But Cal, maybe I'll place fourth in my tickets just because he has a closing style, and I do love closers in the Kentucky Derby, and I think we're going to get a lot of pace. So it'll be interesting to see where Cal finishes, if he has enough talent to finally break a little bit better, because he has a little bit issues breaking sometimes. See if he gets in a little better position than what he has been in the New York circuit, and see if he can get the job done. We go to the morning line favorite at odds of 4-1, Omaha Beach, post 12. So his first three races were on turf. They thought he was going to be a turf horse by Warfront, and it turned out to he didn't do bad, but they moved him over to dirt. He came in a nice second place, and then his next start in Santa Anita on the slop, he romped 7 miles. He wins by 9 lengths in a convincing effort. Richard Mandela ships him over to Arkansas, and they run in the Rebel, and they run into Bob Baffert and the heavy favorite that day of Game Winner. Omaha Beach does a nice job to pretty much take on the challenge of Game Winner, look him in the eye, and just dismount him. So watching that race, I initially was a little bit concerned about Omaha Beach's distance, because even though he fought tooth and nail and he didn't give up any ground to Game Winner in the stretch, I just had distance concerned. And then we look in the Arkansas Derby, and he handled the nice challenge from Improbable really well. It doesn't look like distance is going to be an issue for him. At least that's how I analyze the Arkansas Derby. Now, you could make the argument that, and this is just playing devil's advocate, because he's most likely going to be the favorite, him or Game Winner. And the devil's advocate could say that he's better on a sloppy track. Now, we might get that come Saturday in Kentucky, but his best 2 races, at least from a visual standpoint, have come on sloppy tracks. And did the sloppy track carry him? I mean, the track was favoring to where he was in the Arkansas Derby, and it was a sloppy track. Could you argue that propelled him to make it look even more impressive than it actually was, holding off Improbable? Mike Smith ultimately decided on Omaha Beach over Roadster, who was a Bob Baffert horse. So anytime that Mike Smith has the decision and he decides to go off of a Baffert horse, you know that he picks the horse that he believes has the most talent. So we're looking at Omaha Beach as the morning line favorite. Will I be using him? Absolutely. First, second, third, and fourth. He doesn't need to be on the pace. He could be on the pace if he would like to be. He has natural early speed. And I always get concerned when Mike Smith is on a pace horse, because we've seen in the past that Mike can get a little bit impatient and just let the horse run off and explode to a 22-23 opening quarter. And he just wastes a lot of energy in the first race that these horses are going 1.25 miles. That being said, you have to use Omaha Beach in all your tickets. There's a reason he's the favorite. I would not mind seeing him win. I would not mind seeing Richard Mandela get a Kentucky Derby win under his belt. And I'm a big fan of Mike Smith, so I have no issues with him winning as well. So first, second, third, fourth on all my tickets is Omaha Beach. You have to learn to just spread in the Kentucky Derby. You have to make some decisions on the back end of it. But that being said, you're foolish if you don't spread in the Kentucky Derby, because there is so much money going into the pari-mutuel pools that you can afford to spread and still make a lot of profit. That's the best part about the Kentucky Derby. You have a lot of new people who don't have any idea what they're betting, and you can just take advantage of that by spreading out, spending a little bit more money, but getting a better rate of return because you're using so many options. So Omaha Beach, not going to take a stand on him at all. I love him, and I would not mind him winning first, second, third, fourth on all my tickets. So we go to post position 13, Code of Honor. Naturally, a play on words from Honor Code, who's also trained by Shug McGahee. So his Florida Derby, he couldn't make up much ground because that was an absolute walk on the lead by Maximum Security and Bodie Express. So it was virtually impossible for anyone to catch up to the horses in the Florida Derby. So if you want, you can scratch that race completely. And then we look back at his Fountain of Youth, and he took advantage of an absolute pace meltdown. So pretty much he got the best of one situation and the worst of one situation going from the Fountain of Youth and Florida Derby. So hopefully in the Kentucky Derby, he will get an honest pace And that's pretty much all you can ask for, because if he gets a decent pace, he will have a chance to run him down. I believe that he does have a decent amount of talent. That being said, I don't know how fast he really is. Now, even in his winning effort, where everything went his way through the Fountain of Youth, he only got a 95 on the Brisnet. So that's not really fast enough. He has beaten Vekoma, though, in that race, but I believe in the Fountain of Youth that Bourbon War actually ran a better race, and I was wishing that Bourbon War would do better in the Florida Derby and get in the Kentucky Derby, but he hasn't. Code of Honor is there. I believe that he has some ability. I just don't know how fast he is. I will be placing him 3rd and 4th on my Kentucky Derby trifecta and superfecta tickets. I don't believe he has any shot of winning. Even if there is a pace meltdown, I don't believe he's fast enough to get the job done. Excuse me. So we move on to 14, post position 14. Excuse me as I get a drink. This is win, win, win. Now, a lot of people are really high on this horse, and you can throw me in that camp. I am really high on this horse, not to win. Despite his name, I do not believe he has any chance at winning at all. Now, there's a lot of unknowns. Julian Pimentel in the Derby, trainer Michael Trambata in the Derby. Who knows, connection-wise, what's going to happen with win, win, win in terms of can they handle the big stage of the Kentucky Derby? But I absolutely love this horse to finish in the exotics. So he is a stone cold closer. He's going to be way in the back. He has been on for his 4 last starts. He's just been coming from way off the pace, and I don't like him to win. But he is one that I'm going to be using 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in the Kentucky Derby trifecta, superfecta tickets that I'm going to be playing. He got absolutely stymied in the Bluegrass Stakes coming into the final turn. He got bumped around pretty bad, and he got bumped around at the start. He had a really rough time in the Bluegrass, and it was a very encouraging effort that he got up for 2nd, because that was a speed-friendly track, and he was going against the grain. He did a very good job running up to get 2nd there. He had no business getting 2nd, but he clearly wants to run, and he wants to run for a while. That is something that I absolutely look for in a closer, especially in Churchill Downs at the Kentucky Derby when the horses are going 1.25 miles for the first time. You have to look at horses that love the distance. I believe win, win, win. Even though it looked like in the beginning he may want to go short, I believe he is a distance horse. I will be using him 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in my tickets. I'm hoping that he kind of gets, even though he's from post 14, I want him to get that Looking at Lee run in 2017 where he kind of just stays in the back, finds a nice crease, and just slowly grinds his way through the middle of the pack. I believe that he has enough ability to get up for 2nd place. Now, you would need a very honest pace, probably a little bit of a fast pace for that scenario to happen, but I believe that you will get enough pace where he'll be able to make an honest run. I don't think he has any chance to win, but I will definitely be using him 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in my tickets. Master Fencer, complete toss for me. You have to win your last prep race if you're coming from Japan. Julian Leparoux, I would imagine, is going to take him back and try and make one run to make some noise in this race. If anything, it's going to get the Japanese betting public into the race, which that can't be a bad thing. More money coming into the race could never be that bad of a thing. You want to see the bigger pools because that means bigger payouts and more stupid money going into the pot. I don't believe he has any chance. If he finishes better than 10th, I would be very surprised. I will not be using him in any of my tickets. If he comes anywhere near the board, I lose, and that's just the reality that I'm going to accept. You have to make some cuts here on a 20-horse field. Master Fencer is not going on any of my tickets. We go to another Bob Baffert horse in post position 16 by Gary and Mary West. Again, this is Game Winner. So Joel Rosario picks up the mount after Mike Smith hops ship from Game Winner to Omaha Beach, the morning line favorite. So Game Winner, never out of the exacta in all of his lifetime starts. He first came out by winning the Del Mar Futurity, and that opened the eyes of the betting public to him. He was heavily favored in the rest of his races. American Pharoah winning by 4 lengths. The Breeders' Cup Juvenile was his big score. He wins by 2 lengths over Nick's Go and Signalman. And then in the Rebel, he gets nosed out by Omaha Beach. It was a very nice effort. It was good to see him off the layoff, being shipped from Churchill Downs back to California and then all the way back to Arkansas. He ran a really nice race in the Rebel. You can't take anything away. Omaha Beach was just more ready that day. You can't argue with his nose. And then the Santa Anita Derby, you can make the argument, did they really want to make him work to win that race? I believe that they were trying to keep something left in the tank after the Santa Anita Derby. They knew that a second place would be fine with the points, and they didn't need to get any more points. So how much do you think they actually used of this horse in the Santa Anita Derby? Roadster, who we'll talk about next, needed the race a lot more than Game Winner. I think Game Winner in this race was just a prep. That's why they kept him wide throughout. There was no need for him to win the race when the end goal is the Kentucky Derby. He's already got $1.8 million lifetime earnings. So the Kentucky Derby was ultimately the goal for Game Winner. And when Bob Baffert is your trainer and he has a goal in mind for one particular race, especially a 3-year-old, it's extremely dangerous. So Game Winner, you would be absolutely foolish to leave out on any of your tickets. For me, first, second, third, fourth, he's going to be on all of the positions on all of my tickets. We move to the other Bob Baffert trainee, and right next door to him, Roadster. So Roadster, like I said, in the Santa Anita Derby, needed the points, and he beat his stablemate Game Winner. And it was a very nice effort. Now, the Santa Anita Derby was a very small field, and he didn't have to weave through much traffic or anything like that. So whether he can deal with a lot of dirt in his face, that's something that can be said. But nonetheless, it was a very nice effort. And Bob Baffert horses that come from behind, like a Game Winner does, are very interesting to me. So you're going to have Roadster, and you're going to have Game Winner coming from not on the pace in the Kentucky Derby. And Baffert tends to not have too much success with horses that come off of the pace in the Kentucky Derby. You could argue American Pharoah came a little bit off the pace, and that Justify wasn't exactly like on the pace. He was close to the pace, but he wasn't exactly the pace. I like Bob Baffert horses that have a lot of more speed to them. That being said, you can't deny that Roadster has a lot of talent. He finished behind Game Winner in the Del Mar Futurity, turned the tables when they went longer at 1 1/8. Don't think that distance is going to be an issue for him. Florent Giroux picks up the mount on Roadster. Oh, I screwed up. I believe that I said Mike Smith was on Game Winner. No, Mike Smith was on Roadster, and then he switched to Omaha Beach. I apologize for that. So Florent Giroux, very interesting jockey choice, by the way. But Florent Giroux is going to pick up the mount on Roadster. Again, you'd be foolish to leave off your tickets. This horse has done nothing wrong. He's going to give you an honest race every single time. You have the Bob Baffert angle, owned for a very capable owner of Speedway Stables. So again, on my tickets, first, second, third, and fourth. No complaints using a Bob Baffert horse, especially one that's coming off a win in a hot prep, the Santa Anita Derby. We go to post position 18, Long Range Toddy. He beat out Improbable, another Bob Baffert horse, in the first wave of the Rebel. John Court is going to get the mount. I hope that John Court can have a nice race here. I really like him as a jockey. Steve Asmussen, though, I'm not a huge fan of as a trainer, but nonetheless, he ran really well in the Rebel. He ran okay in the Southwest Stakes, and then we're looking at the Arkansas Derby. He was just absolutely no match. He tried to run up to the pace. He was in a slight stalking position, and he just lost ground. He was no match for Omaha Beach. Improbable ran right by him. And then as he was tiring in the stretch, the horse in post 20, Country House, just ultimately passed him because he was tired and had nothing left. Long Range Toddy for me is a complete throwout. You could argue that he was not a fan of the sloppy track in the Arkansas Derby, and if you're a fan of this horse, I would definitely use that excuse that if he does not like a sloppy track, completely cross the Arkansas Derby off and then look at his prior works. And if you like it, then hey, use it. He's going to be very, very long odds. So if you like him, I'm not going to discourage you from betting him. If you like him and you're going to get good odds come Saturday, then by all means bet him. For me, he will not be on any of my tickets in any positions. We go to post position 19. The other Todd Pletcher horse besides the Sunland Derby winner is Spinoff, who, as I mentioned earlier when describing the Louisiana Derby, there was no excuses for him to lose that race. He was in a perfect position. He was 4-1 that race, so it's not like he was this huge long shot that had no position finishing. He had no reason to lose that race. I do not think that he wants the distance in this race at all. He came in second by 3/4 of a length by my standards, who was 22-1 that day. That should tell you all you need to know about the Louisiana Derby. If you can't beat a 22-1 shot when you have everything go your way. Now, I know he had a bit of an awkward start out of the gate in the Louisiana Derby, but nonetheless, that was a race that, with Todd Pletcher under your belt, you should definitely win. He did not. I do not think he likes going this far. I'll look for him when he cuts back in distance. He would be better suited for a race like the Pate Mile, I believe. But nonetheless, he has the points, so the connections will put him here. And it's Todd Pletcher, so naturally when you have him as your trainer, you're going to want to put your horse in the Kentucky Derby. For me, he will not be on any of my tickets. You know what? I do like that he's very lightly raced, but nonetheless, if I believe that a horse does not want the distance, then I'm probably not going to use him at all. We look at the final post position. Number 20 is Country House. I believe that this horse is a pure plotter. Now, when I say when a horse comes from the back, look no worse than Country House. He comes from a country mile out the back. He has absolutely no early gas. He's going to make his run, but like I said, he's a bit of a plotter. He goes wide on all of his races. He just kind of tries to circle the field and hope for the best, hope that the race comes back to him. Unless there's an absolute destructive meltdown come Saturday, I don't believe that this horse has any shot. Nonetheless, maybe I'll consider putting him 4th on my tickets just because it's a nice round out. You don't know. Whenever you have a closer, a pure closer in the Kentucky Derby, you just don't know because distance is such a question with all of these horses, even the favorites. So something like a Country House finishing 3rd or 4th would not surprise me in any way. I'll probably put him 4th. Maybe I'll put him 3rd in my tickets. And hoping that one of these horses scratches is Bodie Express, 71-1 in the Florida Derby. He was walking on that early pace with maximum security, took advantage of that track, took advantage of the pace, took advantage of the entire race flow. He finished 2nd, but was no match for maximum security at all. He ran like a 71-1 should run against maximum security, but nonetheless, he took advantage of the race flow. He beat Code of Honor in that race, and he has enough points if there is a scratch to get in. If the Japanese horse was not coming over, then Bodie Express would have gotten in there, and I love his sire, Bodie Meister, one of my favorite horses of all time. But if he does get in this race, he's an absolute toss for me. I will not be using him anywhere. And if he does get in the race, I would be surprised if he finished better than 14th. So as I was going through this race, just while I was talking, I'm thinking in my head, I don't really have too much coverage in this race when I say like, oh, I don't like him, I don't like him, I don't like him. So let me take another look at this. So War of Will, I said I'm going to leave off my tickets completely. Maybe I'll put him 4th. Just looking at his running lines, he does like to run, and you can draw a complete line through the Louisiana Derby. Maybe 4th. I would not place him any higher. Tax, for me, is a complete throwout when you have an opportunity to finish a race and you fade pretty badly, in my opinion, especially given a favorable situation. I don't like him in any way, shape, or form. Complete toss out for me. By my standards, he had a nice effort cutting between horses in the Louisiana Derby. I just don't know how talented he is. Maybe a 4th on my tickets. He would never go any higher than that. Great Magician for me is a complete toss. I will not be using him in any UAE Derby horses at all. Improbable, he will be on all 4 spots on my ticket for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Vokoma, As much as I do want to completely toss him out, maybe I could see him getting that third or fourth. If something weird happens with the pace, or it's a speed-friendly track and for some reason Maximum Security is acting a little goofy, maybe he can kind of hang there and get that Battle of Midway trip where Battle of Midway really didn't want the distance, yet he somehow hung on for third, hanging on to defeat Classic Empire. Battle of Midway was a very light raced horse. Vekoma is a very light raced horse. That stride when you have a lead that wide just is very concerning. I don't think he really wants to go this far, despite winning his last race at a mile and an eighth. We've seen weird results in the bluegrass before, ever switching to dirt. So I maybe third or fourth, but never ever a win or exacta contender for me at all. Maximum Security, he's my wild card. So that being said, I think I just love his talent so much. I don't know about the connections with Jason Service, but I do love Luis Saez, and I think Luis is going to be very aggressive with him. And who knows if maybe he can walk on the lead again. I like his talent, so I said I was questionable with where I'm going to put him. I think I definitely am going to put him first, second, third, or fourth. I think he's going to be a very fair price come Saturday. He's going to be overlooked because the Florida Derby is getting such a bad reputation as a speed-friendly track, and he walked on the lead. So I will take the probably inflated odds a little bit, and I will use him in all spots on my tickets. We move to Tacitus. Tacitus is a horse that I could probably put second, third, or fourth. I don't think he has the ability to win, but I like his grit. He's very lightly raced. He got bumped around, so I'm a little bit concerned that he could get a little bit of the starch taken out of him in the Wood Memorial. Nonetheless, he's a very gritty horse. He's going to give you his effort all the time, and I think he wants to go this distance. Pluquet Parfait and UAE Derby, complete toss-out for me. Cutting Humor is a complete toss-out for me. I have no interest in using him. High Cal, maybe I'll put third at highest, but probably fourth. I don't think he's super talented, but like I said, whenever you have a closer who looks like he wants the distance, and High Cal looks like he does indeed want distance, you have to put him in your exotics. You're pretty much forced to. Omaha Beach, no question. The favorites won this race every single time ever since the point system was introduced, so you'd be foolish to leave him out. Code of Honor, I will be putting on the back half of my exotic tickets, definitely, because he is a talented closer. I just don't know if he's fast enough to get up for second. Win. This is kind of my exotic key. I'm really hoping he can get up for second, but nonetheless, third or fourth would also do fine in my bets. I'm hoping for a fast, honest pace where Win can get a good run. I think he has ability, and he's going to be a little bit underlooked. I don't know if he's going to be underlooked. A lot of people are talking about him just because he had such a rough go of it in the Bluegrass Stakes. We'll see how he does, but I am really hoping that I get around 15 to 20 to 1 odds, in which case I will be all over him in the exotics. If he gets drilled lower than that, then that's telling me that people are indeed looking at that race and thinking that he can get a piece of the exotic pie. So maybe I'll go lighter on the second and put him third and fourth. But nonetheless, he will definitely be on all my exotic tickets, just not in first place. I believe that'd be a waste of money. Master Fencer is a complete throwout for me. Game winner, first, second, third, or fourth. Would not be surprised if he won at all. Roadster, he's going to be on my tickets first, second, third, or fourth. I believe he's super talented. He has a good running style for the Kentucky Derby. I know I said I don't like Baffert and closers, but nonetheless, Roadster, you can't deny his ability. Even though Mike Smith left the mount from him to go to Omaha Beach, I really like this horse. First, second, third, or fourth for me. Long Range Toddy, don't like him at all. I know you can throw out the Arkansas Derby because it was a wet track if you're going that angle. Maybe fourth for me at most, but nothing else. Spinoff, I do not like at all. No excuses in Louisiana. I don't think he wants to go this distance at all. He could be a very nice one-turn horse, and I'm hoping that Todd eventually takes him that route, but I don't like him in the Derby at all. He will not be on any of my spots. And then Country House will be in fourth, maybe third if I have the budget for it, because right now it looks like I only have 3 to 4 legitimate win contenders. Now, the legitimate win contenders, you could argue, are Omaha Beach, Improbable, Maximum Security, Roadster, and Game Winner. So you have 5 legitimate, what I would say, win contenders. I'm not going to use Improbable. I personally don't like them. So for me personally, on my tickets, I have 4 win contenders. Maximum Security, Game Winner, Omaha Beach, and Roadster. So those are going to be my 4 horses that I use in first place on my exotic wagers. You heard what I like behind them. You heard which horses I tossed out completely. So that's the way that I play the Kentucky Derby. I spread a lot. I'll probably be using 4 horses in first, and then that's my more aggressive play. I'd probably do a $2 to $3 trifecta in that kind of play, probably spend around $400. And then I have what I call a 50-cent trifecta complete breakdown, where I'll do a coverage bet of like 8 over 9 over 10, where I'll have closers who I normally don't think would win, something like a win-win-win. I'll put them in first just in case there is an absolute pace meltdown, or if the weather doesn't cooperate and horses don't like it that should be winning. So I have a complete breakdown, which I use a 50-cent trifecta and do a lot of spreads. But my main trifecta bet, and if I do a superfecta bet, I'm going to have 4 horses on top, and I read them off to you. So good luck if you're playing this Saturday. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you think that I misspoke on anything, or if you disagree with any of my opinions. These are just my opinions. I wish you the best of luck come Saturday. I love the Kentucky Derby. Obviously, if you're watching this, you love it too. And I will hope the best for you. This has been Dividend Grinder. If you're into investing, watch my other videos, because that's what this channel is all about. I just do Kentucky Derby because it's my passion, and I actually paid off my fiance's engagement ring with the 2017 Kentucky Derby winnings. So I have a really big spot in my heart for the Kentucky Derby. So hope you enjoyed this handicapping session. Good luck.